In this section, they ask us to find the exact value of the trig function of theta. There's 5 problems here. All right, so these are where you're going to use x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. All right, so in the first one, they told me cosine of theta is 1/4, and I know that cosine is x over r. And they told me sine of theta is negative square root of 15 over 4, and I know that that is y over r. And so that helps me know x is equal to 1 and y is equal to negative square root of 15 and r is equal to 4 in both of these, okay? And they asked me to find cotangent of theta, and I know cotangent of theta is x over y, so it'll be x, which is 1 over negative square root of 15. Numerically, this is correct, but it's bad math manners to leave a radical sign in the denominator, so I will rationalize it. So it's square root of 15 over 15, and then there's a negative sign there. I like to put the negative out in front. It's officially in the bottom, but it doesn't really matter where you put it. I like to put it out in the front. There we go. Next, they tell me the secant of theta is 9 over 4. Remember, secant is r over x because it's reciprocal of cosine. And they tell me that theta is in quadrant 4. Okay, quadrant 4 is right here, and in quadrant 4, x's are positive and y's are negative. Okay, so I'm going to have to, and cosecant is r over y. So it looks like I need to figure out what y is. But I already know that r is equal to 9, and I know x is equal to 4, and I know that y will be negative because it's in this quadrant. So y is going to be equal to negative something, okay? To figure it out, I'll just use Pythagorean theorem, our x squared plus y squared equal to r squared. So we would say 4 squared plus y squared is equal to 9 squared, or 16 plus y squared is equal to 81. Then you subtract 16. Hardest part of this problem is you have to subtract. 11 minus 6 is 5, and 7 minus 1 is 6. So that gives me y squared is 65, so y is going to be plus or minus square root of 65, which we already said y is negative, so it's going to be negative square root of 65. Okay? So remember they asked me to find cosecant, which is r over y. So that would be r, which is 9, over y, which is negative square root of 65. Once again, we have to rationalize our denominator. So you just multiply top and bottom by square root of 65. So your final answer will be 9 root 65. Sorry, that's supposed to be a 6. 65 over 65, and because of the negative there, it will be negative. So there's our answer. All right, next we have sine of theta is 2 over 9. Remember, sine is y over r. I think you have to remember all your x, y, r stuff. And they told me tangent of theta is less than 0. Okay, this is going to be a kind of a quadrant problem too. Which quadrants is tangent less than 0? Remember, tangent is y over x, so it's negative where the signs are different, and the signs are different in the second quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. So this has to be the second quadrant or the fourth quadrant. Where is sine positive? Sine is positive in the upper hemisphere, so that's quadrants 1 and 2. So between 1 and 2 and 2 and 4, our overlap is quadrant 2, so I know I'm right here in the second quadrant, okay? So that's where x's are negative, y's are positive. So I don't know what my x is, but I do know it's going to be negative. I know that y is equal to 2, and I know that r is equal to 9. So I just have to figure out what x is. It's going to be negative, though. So I could say that x squared plus 2 squared is equal to 9 squared, or x squared plus 4 is equal to 81. Then you just subtract 4 from both sides. So then you get x squared is 81 minus 4, which I believe is 77. So that means x is equal to negative square root of 77. It would be plus or minus, but I know it's negative because I'm in the second quadrant here, okay? Cosine is what they asked me to find, and cosine, remember, is x over r. So x over r would give me negative square root of 77 over r, which is 9, and that would be my answer. All right, next they asked me to find cosecant of theta, which is r over y, but they told me that tangent's negative 3 over 10. I know that tangent is y over x. I don't know where that negative is going to go. Does it go with the y? Does it go with the x? But hopefully this will help me figure it out. Cosine less than 0. Cosine is x, and x's are negative in the left hemisphere. Okay, so I know I have to be in the left hemisphere. Tangent is negative in the second and fourth quadrant, so I must be in the second quadrant, okay, where x's are negative, y's are positive, okay. So that lets me know, because I need to know x and I need to know y, but I already know x is negative, so x must be negative 10 and y is positive 3, okay. So the only thing I have to figure out is r, so I know negative 10 squared plus 3 squared is equal to r squared, or 100 plus 9 is r squared, so that means r is square root of 109. We're going to say radius always has to be positive, so we just leave it that way. So that's square root of 109. Cosecant is r over y, so r is square root of 109, and y is 3. So there's my answer. All right, last problem here. It says sine of theta is square root of 3 over 2, and secant of theta is less than 0. Remember, secant is reciprocal cosine, so it's like r over x. So it's going to be negative everywhere x's are negative. X's are negative in the left hemisphere, so it's over here in quadrants 2 and 3. Sine is positive in the upper hemisphere, so it looks like I must be quadrant 2, where x's are negative, y's are positive. Sine is y over r, so I already know y is equal to square root of 3, and I know r is 2, so I just need to figure out x, and I do know that x will be negative, okay? So then I just say x squared plus square root of 3 squared is equal to 2 squared, which means x squared plus 3 is equal to 4, or x squared is 1, so x is plus or minus 1, and I actually know it's negative 1. They asked me for two things. They said, what's the cosine of theta, and what's the tangent of theta? I know cosine is x over r, and I know tangent's y over x. So now I know x, y, and r. This will just be negative 1 over 2, and y over x, this will just be square root of 3 over negative 1, which is just negative square root of 3. Anything over 1 is just itself. So there's our answer. Hopefully we could still see most of that. There we go.